Hello everybody and welcome back to Let's Play Suzerain. So last part we made the decision to lift mandatory conscription because we just decided it's not exactly useful in the grand scheme of things. So let's see, regional map, what do we have here? ATO hails nuclear breakthrough, advanced tech promises. Interesting. Announced a major nuclear breakthrough that promises not only to revolutionize its military capabilities, but also to greatly enhance its energy sector. The newly developed technology showcases the scientific prowess of the Alliance and reinforces its strategic positioning on the global stage. Let's see. Combines novel nuclear reactor designs and advanced materials that could potentially make nuclear power safer, more efficient, and more sustainable. Don't worry, nobody's going to let you build those reactors though, because they don't want it in their backyard. Let's see. Governor Braun enacts resettlement order. I'm sorry, Braun, I'm not a big fan of that. Allowing the eviction of Brutish citizens suspected, not even proven, of supporting the BFF and dividing up their communities. What do we got here? Antiquated railways or something disappeared, one of the two. A group of demonstrators led by representatives from the Swordish League of Women marched in Enrica, calling for gender equality in Sordland's public education system. Pretty sure we already basically said we plan to do that. Whether or not it's been implemented yet is a completely different story. Kazian air access. I don't know why that's only just finally popped up there. Oh, because they only finally got their planes here. Arcasia has finished moving its planes to the Urlori Air Force Base. As per the terms of the new agreement, the Arcasian military is allowed to refuel and repair access to the Air Force Base in exchange for providing logistical, financial, and equipment support to Sordland. We will be able to buy their whatever aircraft. Let's see. Fight against BFF continues in Bergia. I'm not going to read this entire one, if I'm completely honest, and I forgot to get my timer started. Let's see. And then somebody complaining about getting rid of mandatory conscription because it makes men soft. Yeah, okay, sure. Okay, just another one talking about the governor of Bergia issuing, or reenacting, I guess, I think is what it said, the resettlement order. Special zone declares war on Brutish people. Yep, okay. Women march for equal education in Enrica. Yep, got no problems for that. And then radical praises getting rid of the mandatory conscription, which, you know, just kind of makes sense to me to get rid of. Okay, so not much. Let's have a briefing on the current economic situation. The team gathered in Holsword at the Ministry of Education to go over the current economic situation. The building was constructed in 1892 by Huron Walt, possibly the most famous architect in Sordland. It was a simple and elegant structure with a few of his signature domes spread out over the roof. I walked through the large bronze doors. Two assistants led me upstairs to a meeting room. Everyone stood up as I entered the room, buttoning their shirt jackets. Welcome, Mr. President. Let's see. No, please take your seats. Everyone took their seats. As you all know, today we will go over our economic status. Let's begin without further ado. The aid we have received from Arcasia has helped us tremendously. Personally, I think it was a great decision, Mr. President. We will use the majority of the capital to combat the recession. I would expect nothing less from our Arcasian friends. Well said. How are we doing in terms of our infrastructure? The success of the first infrastructure project is already showing a positive effect on the economy. Mikhail started grinning as he leaned forward. Thanks to the highway, economic growth is Returning to England, we are expecting new investments and jobs in the region. Many leaders on the Business Council have praised the logistical improvements. It was a gargantuan effort from our side in the Ministry of Economy. We can do much more to improve the economy, and we will, because our work is far from over. You are correct. The subjects of tax reform and many more await future debate. David, do you have the stats on our deal with Agnolia? Our trade deal with Agnolia has increased our imports and exports by 25% in 1 month, with much more to be expected in the future. But higher prices of Agnolian steel didn't result in a trade surplus. Interesting. Well, yes, I think the obvious thing is we should look for more trade partners. We can make much more and increase our presence in the region. I agree, not just the region. We should target for more deals internationally. Agreed. We should see our improved relations with Agnolia as a stepping stone to expand a positive influence. I support our foreign initiatives with partners as democratic as Agnolia. Let's see. I didn't ask for your opinion. Well, that sounds like a dickish thing to say. I agree, aligning ourselves with more democratic countries is good for Sordland. It is good for overall trade with other countries as well. Democratic countries generate more trust in general. On a side note, consumer spending has decreased further due to a pessimistic mood caused by our economic issues. That is discouraging. We've done the best we could thus far. We should maintain our optimism. While I agree that our first attempts were not successful, we still might have economic opportunities left. It isn't good for our reputation. The people expected quick solutions. We are running out of time. People are idiots if they're expecting quick solutions to hard problems, especially things that are literally not as simple as flipping a light switch. The central bank has begun working on a bill with the Grand National Assembly to increase our preparedness for future damaging economic incidents. The NBC will also lend support to the analysis and contingency plans regarding the ongoing developments. I am looking forward to further collaboration between our departments to solve upcoming issues. Simon checked his large dossier. Our treasury is in a dangerous amount of debt. Yes, we know, Simon. If we don't reduce our debt in the future, we might fall in a debt crisis or worse. What are your suggestions on tackling this? I will work on some proposals regarding taxes to generate further revenues. As per the latest data from the ministry, the recession unfortunately seems to be lingering still in some economic areas. No matter the cost, we will have to increase our economic development rates, otherwise I am sad to say that we will be doomed. We need to use the opportunities we have been given. Trade deals and infrastructure improvements always help. Mr. President, I'll be very clear. Simon took off his glasses, oh boy, and put them on the table. He looked me straight in the eye. You already know this, but I don't want to frighten you, but if we are unable to stop this recession, we are heading towards an economic catastrophe that has never been seen before in Sordland. No, in all of Eastern Marcopa. I can't even begin to imagine how we could survive that. None of us want to see Sordish people starve while the state is unable to provide for its citizens. Then we need to get to work. Exactly. He put on his glasses. Now, there are a few methods we could use to tackle the recession. Our debt situation is awfully bad, and I heavily advise against further expenditures. However, I will still present new projects and leave the decision to you, Mr. President. There are two main distinctions between these projects. It's either about continuing our infrastructure improvements or investing in increasing production. If we continued working on our infrastructure, that would lift us up to advanced country levels. However, our industrial production also needs a boost to return to pre-recession levels. There is, of course, the option to not take any risks related to our budget. The plans for these projects will be finalized soon. For now, I can provide preliminary information. Which one would you like to hear first? Oh, well, tell me about the infrastructure. For infrastructure, we have two projects. One is the Benfi International Airport, and the other is the Morna Port. Benfi is growing at a rapid pace and would benefit highly from an international airport. Much more money to be made there too. The Morna port will boost trade and improve the flow of goods toward Holsword, because the Conriat port is too small in capacity and extension is blocked by the Navy headquarters. Benfi is down here. I mean, I'm inclined to, probably agree that Benfi is probably more beneficial. Benfi is rapidly developing and there is much to gain from increasing its connectivity to the world. Imagine all the tourists that would arrive. We must focus on improving the well-being of our worst citizens, and while Morna is no poor city, it very well deserves investment. Okay, what are the projects that could boost our production? For production, we have two projects. One is the Sarna Agricultural Zone, and the other is the Conriat Industrial City. I see the Sarna Agricultural Zone investment as a higher priority due to the fact that farmers in Bergia were the most hit by the recession. Sarna also is a much poorer city than Conriat. The Conriat Industrial City project has the potential to increase manufacturing in the greater Holsword region by a large amount. I mean, both are certainly valid, although I guess it is a question. The industrial city probably would be more beneficial in terms of direct resources, but in terms of actually helping people, Sarna is probably the better option. For now, we'll say Sarna is a much poorer city. Indeed, it deserves any investment it can get from the government. The recession has hit the farmers of Sarna particularly hard. Besides, the agricultural output increase would boost our economy. The investment won't be able to recover the industry there. Conriat, on the other hand, would bring more financial gain. Probably. Our government has the opportunity to support agriculture, and we should take it. It would increase our exports, too. Okay, got enough information for now. Very well. That covers our subjects for today. Anybody who wants to add something? Well, actually, I have a couple more economy-related questions. Edith, how strong is our currency? Currency health has greatly improved thanks to the strong economic action of the administration, and the value of the Ren has also increased beyond expectations. Wow, you guys had low expectations for me, didn't you? We can observe a 5 percentage point drop in inflation at the central bank in comparison to pre-election levels. This is unprecedented when analyzing in the past 5 years. Interesting. Mikhail, how is the mood at the National Business Council? The business leaders in the country are nervous about the lack of tangible economic improvements in the country. I mean, sure, we're spending money out the wazoo, but I don't know. Bar go up. That seems good to me. I guess bar doesn't go up enough for them, though. They're holding on to their investments until they feel it is safe to invest their reserves in new hires or branches. Okay. David, what can we expect in terms of our trade situation? Our success in reaching a trade deal has boosted our position as a regional trade route and increased the likelihood of potential trade partners. We have imported and exported more across the board with all countries except Roomberg. Oh, really? Even Wayland. Interesting. Thank you for the information. That concludes the meeting. Have a good day, all. Goodbye. Until next time, Mr. President. See you soon. Meeting ended. Okay, let's see. Ishval Urson versus Governor Braun in the Swordish Constitution. Interesting. Bludish civil rights activist. Oh, he's got my support. Because he's going against the governor of the special region down there in Bergia. And then, don't think you guys had this post before. Yeah, so just reiterating again, housewives march to defend Swordish tradition and Rika. Oh, never mind, this is a different one. This is the counter-protest. Central bank bill, a necessary measure. I suppose we'll see. Focus on bolstering foreign exchange reserves, fiscal prudence, and support for high export potential industries. The bill offers a holistic response to economic challenges. Okay, I mean, that sounds all nice and good. We'll see how well it actually is. Radical talks about how Ishval Ersin is right. That is, again, the Blutish civil rights activist. Operation Bear Trap begins. Okay, yep, that's for Wayland. We stay away from that as much as possible. Amid spiking tensions with Agnolia, Volksland increases their naval presence. That's not exactly something I want to hear, all things considered. And let's see. And yeah, Wayland just kind of trying to throw us under the bus, saying that our diplomacy disappoints because we refuse to assist them with Operation Bear Trap. Ooh, polio, that's not fun. Currently 23 active cases in Sordland. Yep, that's all fine with us. Protest against Governor Braun's resettlement order. And Urson v. Sordland case. Yep, again, they'll have our support on that. Prime Minister Van Horten warned us about the increasing naval presence of Volksland in the Markian Sea. He showed his wishes to have a stronger naval cooperation with Sordland in the future. Yeah, unfortunately, buddy, I don't have the money to spend on a big navy, so you're not going to get much in the way of naval support from us. Well, let's see. We have investment in mega project, so it's going to decrease our government budget by 2. So let's just, consider things a little bit here. So all of these decrease the government budget by 2, which means we'll go to -9, which is not exactly great. Hopefully that doesn't bite us in the ass in the future. Let's see. So if we invest in Benfi, the economic development there goes up by 1. If we invest in Conriat, there is 0 economic development change. Morna Port increases the economic development in Lauren by 1. And if we invest in the Sarna agricultural zone, the economic development there goes up by 1. So let's see. So Benfi and Morna synergizes with Lispian/ATO trade, Volksland and CSP trade respectively. Building either will also raise your infrastructure to advanced levels and give you a shiny green economic modifier. In addition, were you to pass the Tourism and Preservation Act in turn 2, the international airport would incentivize travelers to visit the city, which Simon Hall will note has boosted economic development. Is a choice we usually go with. Okay, yep, that's fine. Conriat offers the largest increase in production, but does not raise living standards or benefit any particular region. The Sarna agricultural zone helps Bergia, thus the Bloods, and raises production. However, it also mentions that if investing means going very deeply into debt, having a considerably negative government budget, do not be afraid if it's just -2, avoid so. I don't know if -7 is considered. I mean, I know -7 I think was considered very bad for a previous event. If you had -7 or lower when that event popped, it was very bad for you. Don't know if that's still a concern for the future or not, though, but I feel like -7 is probably really bad for us. So We gotta... I want to build the Benfi National or International Airport. One thing I'm curious about, because I don't know if we did it. I do not recall in the slightest. Did we do... Okay, looks like we did. So presumably there is, I would assume, an extra economic development in Gruni. If we were to do the airport. I'd assume it's +1, just in general for doing it. But I'd assume you get another +1 if you had passed the Tourism and Preservation Act, which looks like we did. I just don't know if we want to risk it with such a bad budget. I want to say no, because I really do feel like -7 is probably really bad. Fuck it. We're gonna risk it. We're gonna risk it. Benfi International Airport. Hopefully that doesn't literally break the bank. Only thing we can hope for. Okay, meeting on the escalating tensions in Bergia, and that's probably going to be it for this part afterwards. Nia Morgna and Lilis Graf scheduled a meeting to discuss an ongoing legal case that required my attention. Early in the morning, we convened in my office. Thank you for being here at this hour, Mr. President. We need to inform you about some news from Bergia. There is a court case initiated by a Bludish citizen, which involves a possible revision of the Constitution. Unfortunately, it has the potential to affect the whole country. Okay, explain, please. I'll start from the beginning. As you know, after the discovery of KA-74s in separatist hideouts, there have been more than a few attacks initiated and claimed by the BFF. Due to the lack of security funding, some of these otherwise avoidable attacks couldn't be stopped. This led to some increase in the tensions in Bergia. The main problem is with the security structure of Bergia. Due to the special status of the region, operations on the ground are run by local security forces that are not bound to the interior, which means my hands are tied. Unfortunately, the court backlog is piling up with increasingly frequent rulings that are unjust. This has led to many of our citizens losing their trust in our justice system. This is particularly a problem for the residents of Bergia. It's definitely not helping with the increasing tensions between the Bludish populace and swords. It increased even further after Operation Bear Trap. We have been receiving more and more intelligence about some kind of a preparation by the terrorists. We can't allow the conflict in Wayland to spread to Sordland, and we know that the Wayland and Sordland divisions of the BFF are in close cooperation. That's precisely why I didn't make a deal with Wayland. That was the right decision. Well, it didn't seem to have stopped the tensions from increasing. Their war against the BFF has bolstered their resolve inside our country. The increasing threat of the BFF led Governor Braun to justifiably resort to his emergency powers to curb the danger. His discovery of militant training grounds disguised as schools was commendable, as well as his quick handling of bomb threats coming from major cities like Deer. However, the latest policies have been questionable, especially the peaceful resettlement order. It has been met with massive anger from the majority of the Bloods in the region. This is a massive understatement. Governor Braun has abused his powers and clearly acted against the Constitution. And quite surprisingly, Ishval Urson has managed to successfully push his case to the higher courts. He is suing Felix Braun for infringing upon the liberties of Bludish people. He also raises a conflict in the Constitution and argues that the way it is written makes it open to interpretation and allows people like Governor Braun to abuse their powers. Ooh, that's not fun. Who is Ishval Urson? Ishval Urson is a lawyer and Brutish rights activist. He lives in Deir and has experienced the systemic racism in the region firsthand. He was evicted last month from his home in Deir on the grounds of threatening public stability and safety. He was also shot at by local law enforcement forces several times in the last 2 years and managed to survive it all so far. The attackers, of course, were never punished. As much as the eviction seems unjust, Mr. Urson must be further investigated for his potential ties to dangerous organizations. I'd like to believe the force wouldn't have fired at him without proper reason. I mean, that feels like wishful thinking. What the Brutish community is going through in Bergia is unacceptable. We must do what it takes to stop this madness. That we must. Okay, what is this case about? Ishval Urson is claiming that the current constitution gives the legal grounds to discriminate against Brutish people, directly infringing upon their rights as citizens. He claims Article 7 of the Constitution, citing the line, "Every sword is equal before the law," is in direct conflict with the freedoms and rights defined in Article 100. Governor Felix Braun is accused of using Article 7 to justify his oppression of the Brutish community. Okay. What exactly does Urson claim about the conflict in the Constitution? As you know, the rights and liberties Article 7 alludes to are described in Article 100 in further detail. All citizens, in theory, can exercise their rights described in these articles and are equally subject to laws as described, and these rights cannot be suspended by the government under any circumstances other than a defensive war. Mr. Urson claims the line, "Every sword is equal before the law" in Article 7 does not include other ethnicities and thus gives the state the right to suspend or limit the rights of non-swords defined in Article 100. Courts have repeatedly protected Governor Braun in the past, and it is true that he bets on Mr. Hawker justifying his actions through Article 7. However, there is also Article 6, which the courts could have taken into account already. Okay, what is the problem with Article 6? As you know, Article 6 goes, "Everyone who is bound to the swordish state by citizenship is a sword," which clarifies clearly that the Constitution does not discriminate against other ethnicities or cultures. Citizens of this country are called swords. But did you ask the Brutish people what they think? Yes, it's true that this article has protected them on a number of occasions, as it defines sword as a non-ethnic term, but it is left up to the interpretation of the courts. They could have argued that Article 6 extends the rights defined in Article 7 to all citizens of Sordland, regardless of race, but they didn't, yet. They can potentially push this case to the Supreme Court. Okay, what are the accusations against the governor? Mr. Braun has sadly evicted thousands of Bloods from their home in Deir recently. The fact that this happened in a city with relatively low levels of BFF activity is a sloppy decision at best. A sloppy decision? This is a direct violation of their right to property. The BFF activity levels have nothing to do with this. But it does, Ms. Morgana. The state can take any measures to fight with terror inside its borders. The decision would have been justified if those neighborhoods were in fact labeled as threat level red. But they were not. Hence, he did not have the authority to evict those citizens. In this case in Deir, the governor has definitely violated his authority. You were underplaying it. This eviction was only the last of the many he ordered as part of Bergia's peaceful resettlement policies. This is not about Deir. There are hundreds of accusations listed in this case, ranging from violent actions by law enforcement officers to open discrimination in local municipalities. Calm down, Nia dear. I'm not disagreeing with you. Nia stacked the papers in front of her. In any case, the Supreme Court might be troubling the situation might be troubling if it reaches the Supreme Court and Mr. Hawker manages to sabotage it by altering the current interpretation. It would be disastrous for Brutish rights. I will be doing my best to ensure a positive result comes out of this case, but I'm not sure if the centrists will be willing to agree with Mr. Urson. Why would Mr. Hawker even sabotage it? The current interpretation is strictly solist. I'm sure he will follow the Constitution and charge Governor Braun for unconstitutional behavior. Wishful thinking. According to the foundational values of this republic, everyone who is a citizen of this country is a sword. The Constitution is clear about this and does not allow for discrimination. Maybe Hawker is not the man you think he is, Miss Graff. From what I've heard, his stance on this subject may not be the standard Solus interpretation, but something darker. I'm afraid he'll reject the case altogether and find Governor Braun innocent. If this happens, it would make discrimination against Bludish people legal. This is insane. Isn't there anything I can do? I'm afraid not, Mr. President. The executive has no jurisdiction over the judiciary. And in this case, I'm afraid even Justice Edmonds and the centrists would be almost impossible to convince. To be honest, I don't think this is a matter for our administration. We must keep out from judicial affairs. As much as I hate to say it, I somewhat agree with Leilas on this. I'd prefer to keep the status quo over risking a complete abolitionment of rights. We still have the power to make tangible reforms. Let's see. What if we can convince the justices to agree with Urson? Wouldn't that give us precedent to change said articles of the Constitution? If the Supreme Court agrees that the Constitution is in conflict with itself, yes, but I don't know if you are serious or not, Mr. President. I'm afraid even Justice Edmonds and the centrists would be completely against that. It would be a very difficult scenario. As I said, I think the government has better things to do than meddle with judicial affairs. There is, however, something that the government can do to address the situation on the ground. It is time we push for change within the security structure of Bergia and the special status that resulted in de facto autonomy. It clearly isn't working. I believe we are aligned on this matter, Mr. President. Mr. President, you asked me to explore options regarding the revocation of the special zone at the beginning of our term. Given the current circumstances, I think it is now possible. I'm listening. The resettlement policies in Bergia and the Urson case have changed the mood of the lawmakers. We can use this opportunity to push for the removal of Tarkin Sol's security zone decree. It is a much bigger possibility than before. Of course, racism is rampant throughout our country, but Bludish citizens inside Bergia are having a much worse time than Bludish residents of cities like Lockhaven or Hallsword. If we focus on Bergia, we can remove its special status. This alone would be a huge step for Bludish rights. Unfortunately, as long as Governor Braun is in charge of Bergia with the powers he has, no judicial reform would reverse the situation on the ground. To put it simply, we want to work on a detailed proposal to restructure Bergia. I believe it must become a region of Sordland like any other. We must centralize the system and abolish the local security forces. I mean, I feel like that's a fair question, but also, are you sure we can even revoke the special status of Bergia? We cannot be sure of anything, Mr. President. You know this better than me, but Lilith and I both believe there is potential to get more MPs behind the idea. It is true, some members of my circle inside the party are keen on this as well. They are starting to believe Sol's policy in Bergia has already run its course. If we play our cards right during the process of this case, while we work on the preparation of a strong proposal for the special zone, we can gather enough support behind it. We have to try. Why stop with Bergia? We have to eventually change Articles 6 and 7 as well. I'm glad that we agree. Of course, we should push for that in our next amendments. Before we get distracted, I'd like to briefly talk about the details of the proposal. Nia and I both agree that we need to abolish the special zone of Bergia. This is the first point that the proposal will address. This would also mean taking away the special authority of the governor. I agree with removing the governor as well as his insane authority, but I don't support a complete centralization of the region. I propose that we restructure the special zone, democratize it, and acknowledge the Bludish movement. How does that resolve anything? How do you resolve any problem by dividing the region from the rest of Sordland? We've tried that already. Well, yeah. Let's hear her out. I don't necessarily agree with her, but let's hear her out. What does she have to say? Thank you, Mr. President. Millions of Blutish people suffered over the last decades. We saw a massive uprising, terror attacks, and a governor going rogue. These people only wanted to live in this country as equals, but they were denied that. Why don't we allow Bergians to elect their own local government? Why is Holsword so keen on prying into the lives of the Blutish people? We should replace the oppressive laws of the special zone with a democratic system that allows for proper local representation. I propose the Bergia semi-autonomous region. I'm sorry to tell you, Ms. Morgana, but Bergia is part of Sordland as much as Angland or Holsword. You're bringing secessionist Feta Ijal's lifelong quest here as your proposal. What's wrong with you? What's next? Secession of Bergia and a formation of an independent Blutish state? Autonomy for Angland? And why don't you hold a referendum for the Rooms of Estord and ask them if they want to join Roomburg while we're at it? Well, yeah, Miss Graff, I want to hear your proposal as well. My proposal is very simple. The special zone must be fully revoked, governor's powers taken away, and the local security forces must be abolished. Only then Bergia can be an equal part of Sordland. I propose we unite Bergia with the rest of Sordland and enforce the same laws and policies as any other Sordish region, dismantling the current semi-independent security structure in the process. We will hold local municipal elections just like every city in Sordland, and the security of the region will be under the full control of the Ministry of the Interior. We can no longer allow their forces to pursue violence with impunity. If this was a fix, then the central government could fix your mighty colonel, would have solved it already. The assimilation process or policies clearly didn't work. What does that have to do with anything? I'm just saying the solution is not a rush to unification. We must acknowledge that Bergia is a unique region with its own culture and history. We cannot disregard the social reality. I mean, I can see where Morgana is coming from, but I'm generally inclined to agree with Graf that having this semi-autonomous region, I don't think necessarily helps deal with the situation. I really don't. It just does not seem like something that actually solves the problem. I'm just kind of curious. As to kind of what our options are here. Because I don't think it's a great decision. I really don't. Yeah, no, sorry. I'm supportive of Layla's plan to revoke the special status of Bergia and unify with the rest of Sordland. So it's decided then. I can start working on the proposal as soon as possible. Yes, it's been decided, Miss Graff. You can get to work immediately. I'm counting on you. Of course, Mr. President, right away. This is a mistake. Please, Miss Morgana, you've heard the President. I will start working on the proposal immediately. It is very important to get this right, so it will take some time. My estimate is that it will be ready sometime after the vote on your constitutional amendments. You can choose to enact it then. Sounds good, Miss Graff. I'm counting on you. Great. I'll get to work. See you later, Mr. President. They bid their farewells and left the room. I got 7 minutes left on the clock, but I don't think that's enough to be bothering with anything else. Gas. Oh, Gasum thrives. New investment yields success. Wonderful. And a rising star in United Cantana. Interesting. Very interesting. Balanced energy prices in Lockhaven. Wonderful, wonderful. That's going to be it for this part because, yeah, I don't think I got enough time to really do anything with 7. Well, I mean, that's not strictly true. I suppose we can do the Central Bank Reinforcement Act. Should have plenty of time for that, at least. Let me see. Yeah, I think we got time for this one, so I think we'll do it. The interesting thing, though, for me is I'm curious as to really what the benefits are, because I'm kind of struggling to see them. Maybe it's just me, but my reading of this is just a simple signing it decreases the government budget by 1, and vetoing it does nothing. At least in terms of immediate things. Interestingly, I'm actually not able to see anything listed here regarding exactly how that impacts stuff, which I'm a little surprised by. That it doesn't say anything at all about exactly what the impact is of the decision. It really is surprising to me. It really is. So, yeah, you know, I'm really not sure. I mean, I think we'll sign it anyway. I just, out of curiosity, would like to have had a better idea as to what the end benefits of it are. Our budget is going to be screwed for the entirety of this campaign. So, Central Bank Reinforcement Act and Fiscal Protection Measures. Let's see. Central Bank Act, a stronghold for Sordland. And op-ed, a misguided attempt at control. Interesting. Okay, well, either way, that's going to be it for this part. I will see you all next time, and, well, hopefully we will at some point get the economy sorted out, but probably not. So at that point, our main priority is going to be surviving a potential invasion by Rumburg at some point, because I'm sure that'll happen. But until next time, goodbye and farewell.